it is. I like the more leaf face guy, but yeah, I'm not able to I'm not able to get to that level anymore, and I'm sad. I'm saddened by it because it's what I want, and I don't get it, so I feel bad. I put a heart by the leaf face guy, and then I even typed in leaf face, and this is all I could find. This isn't the right leaf face. It was like a lot of leaves. This is the wrong one. This is not the one I'm really looking for. Anyway, so this guy worked for a construction worker. He's in Florida, and he works at Disney. These guys work at night when Disney closes down because they don't fix shit at the Disney theme park until all the people are left. They work on the different stuff. He talked about his job, the things that he did. Well, oh shit. It's my tea. Violently threw it a little bit forward. Fortunately, I got the tea leaf blocker. So he brings his lunch. He doesn't want anybody fucking with his food, so he keeps it with him at work. Because one time he put it in a little break room, and somebody stole his lunch, and that pissed him the fuck off. So it's like, I'm not having that again. I'm taking it to my area where I work. So it's in the middle of the night. They're having lunch, and he forgot to bring his sack of food. They were working on this new ride, which was the Seven Dwarfs. Probably the gay ones. The gay ones from the Ziegler girl Snow White, the most recent one. Not an old Snow White. This is a new ride, okay? A new Snow White ride. This is for the new movie that came out. So that's going to give you your time frame. Now, this is what he said about the land. This is what he said. He went back and he caught him doing a sacrifice on a girl dressed as Cinderella, not Snow White. He didn't say Snow White. He didn't say Snow White. He said Cinderella. There was 5 people in robes. 4 of them cut the girl like they cut her all the way down to here, cut her all the way down to here. The 5th guy cut her throat, and that they killed her. Now, when he came back, and he didn't find his food because he caught this going on. They didn't catch him. They didn't see him seeing them do it. But they sent him home. They sent him home. The guy that was his boss over all the people that it was a subcontractor. It wasn't Disney. It was whatever company is contracted out to doing maintenance and has been, because this guy's like 80 years old and he's still working there, but he's the head of this business that's the subcontractors. When he asked him what he saw, he asked the kid why did he freak out, because they knew he saw something. But this guy had been there for so long, he wanted to know what he saw. And this kid explains to him all these details. And that the guy didn't smirk. The guy didn't give him any sign to think that he was trying to shield or protect them from doing this thing. It sounded more like it was important that he verified that he probably knows that this is going on too. So the old man tells him, he's like, this land is bad. Before they built the Disney place on there and back into the Indian times, they figured out if they needed the weather to do something or whatever, they had to kill somebody. They had to sacrifice. If you wanted to build a church, you'd have to sacrifice somebody from the church. If you wanted to build a fucking blacksmith shop, you had to fucking sacrifice a blacksmith. So that was his way of explaining it. Now, Disney must have known about this, but he bought this land through a bunch of like shell company micro purchases to get the whole land. He didn't want anybody initially to know that he was getting it, but they obviously know about that because the people the people in the town had to be like the mayor had to be there. The mayor had to be the one, or this magic didn't work. So this town where this shit was going on, they were able to actually get out from underneath the curse, but Walt Disney bought into this curse. And that since it was a new ride, and the princess, they had to sacrifice a princess. In a way. They didn't say it was Snow White. That's so weird to me. They didn't say it was Snow White. I don't think I told anybody but Candace this story because I think that other than doing human sacrifice, which you don't even need to do animal sacrifice unless you just eat meat, you're already participating in that. I eat meat, but I don't. That's why it's important to thank in the right spirit the things that we consume. Not to get off track, but I'm saying that's what makes it a lot more important. The more you know. That's all.
Parks as well. If you didn't know, Walt Disney World opened in 1971. It was actually not too uncommon to come across someone who had been a lifer with Disney, or knew someone who was 40, especially at night. Although it's not pitch black, there is very minimal lighting, except where we put our floodlights up to do work. Security is only using flashlights, or the headlight of their carts to light their ways, and store lights are only on if someone is working in them. Quite eerie and yet cool at the same time. It's like a totally different place than during operating hours. As a matter of fact, one time when I decided to visit the park as a guest, I couldn't find a ride that I wanted to go on because it looked so different during the day with all the colors, people, sounds, and music. 1 year of working at the place full time, and I had to swallow my stupid pride and go get a map. Haha. Pathetic. Anyway, as I started conversing more and more with the cast members, some of the security staff and I found out that we had a mutual interest in the paranormal. Of course, that would come up in conversation eventually when working graveyard shifts. Haha. I would get to hear stories from them all the time. The famous ghost in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. The murder or self-termination in one of the rooms of a certain resort. The jumping off of terraces at another. Ghosts of cast members who passed on that come back and say hi. The spooky occurrences at rides where some unfortunate guest was killed. The stories went on and on. Although fun to hear, I won't lie. It did give the whole property an ominous feeling at times that a guest will never get to experience. Even co-workers of mine had stories to tell. Attractions turning on even though the lockout tag-out system is in place to ensure that they don't. Following someone to a break room and walking in to find no one in there. Of course, the noises and voices when they were working alone. Ghost hunters jackpot. So several months ago when arriving at work, the foreman called our team over for a meeting. He announced we would be starting a new assignment in the Magic Kingdom shortly. We would be working on the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train ride. This attraction would be opening later in the year. How exciting. Up until now, my crew, since I had started with them, had been doing mundane yet necessary assignments. We had the pleasure of pouring concrete, digging ditches, fixing bathrooms. Good stuff. Now we were actually going to get to work on an attraction. Imagine me getting to tell my future wife and children that I helped make this as we were riding it. They would be in awe and so proud. The building was already up for the most part, and we were going to be working on making it show-ready. You know, making a building look like a mine inside and out, fabricating rocks, fixating jewels, the works. Then he proceeded to tell us that as per Disney management, we were to all take our lunch breaks at 3 a.m., and to only take it in this particular break room we were in. I thought that was kind of weird. Since my employment with them began, we were never told when and where to take lunch. We used to always stagger our breaks as well so that most of the crew was always working. Whatever, I guess. The mouse paid our bills, and who the hell was I to question it? I was still the rookie, but I will say this. I saw what I was thinking in the eyes of my co-workers as well. We were only a group of 10 guys on this assignment, and we were broken up into groups of 5. One group would work on the outside, and one group on the inside of the attraction. I was in the inside group. It was a pain to work on that thing. Due to the size of the spaces where we had to work, maybe 1 or 2 floodlights would fit in an area where we were working. It gave an effect of staring into a fire in the woods. While working on a wall, it was bright as hell. When you came out of that space, you were as blind as a bat. The first few days, it became a running joke contest of who tripped on something and broke their ass the most each week, and had to pay for the drinks when we went out together. I paid up twice the first month. Thanks, Disney. I guess you could call me paranoid, but I would never leave my lunch bag in the fridge in the break room. I'm an absolute angry asshole if I get hungry, and after having it stolen once while at Animal Kingdom, I was not going to have it happen again. So I just carried it with my other gear from then on. We were working on the opposite side of the attraction from the break room, and it was just about lunchtime. We cleaned up all the possible trip hazards and went on break. When we got to the break room, I realized I had left my bag where we were working. Damn it. There was no way I was spending $8 on a Coke and a stupid bear claw from one of Disney's rip-off vending machines. I told the guys I was going to run back and get my bag. So, off I went. I was hurrying along because we only get a half hour for lunch, and if we take even a minute longer to get back to our work location, there is hell to pay. And you all know how fast a half hour flies by unless you're working. Trying to make good time, I must have made a wrong turn in all that blackness. My stupid flashlight was in my tool bag. Of course. I was attempting to feel my way around the track when I saw some
Okay,
light
look,
coming
I have
up
a
ahead of
theory
me.
about this,
They looked like they could be a
which
set
is
of
why
emergency
you can
lights,
see
but they
that
were quite dim and flickering.
this guy is at the beginning of
Any
his
port in a
story.
storm,
I pretty much
right?
gave you the summary ahead of
I
this,
slowly made
and
my
I'm going
way
to stop
towards
it
them
at 20
and
minutes,
began to hear voices, but I
and
couldn't make out
that's
any
what's going
words.
on. I
There
just
was no
put,
one in the
I had an
attraction
old
other
mattress
than
that I
us,
bought from
or so
Amazon.
we were told.
It had a
Oh
really
my God.
weird, like,
After all the
solar,
stories I was told,
sort
I
of
finally
name.
going to
I
have
forget
one
what
of
the
my
name
own?
is. I can't tell you
As
that at
much as
this
felt the
moment.
hairs on my neck stand
But
up, I was
it's just
excited as
a
well.
piece of super
Even though I
foam,
really like hearing
super
about
memory
ghosts,
foam,
I
and I
can't
just
say
put
that I
it
am
back
really truly afraid of them.
as the next
I
one,
just don't
which
want
I've
them in
not
my
done
home.
before.
Other than
I
that,
had
I
it
find the
outside,
idea of them
but all I had to do is
fascinating. I slowly peeked my head around
dust
the
it
next
off.
corner.
It's still fine.
I wish to God it was a
And
ghost I
it's
saw.
amazingly
It was
gave
a
me
large, at least
just like
compared
a
to where
whole
we
nother
were working,
foot
open space, and
and
there was a
of
fabricated
from
stone
off the
slab
floor.
made
It's
to look
hard when
like
you
a
get old
natural
at
rock
night to go
formation in the
piss.
center.
If you have to get
6
up from the
figures in
dead ass
suits were
floor with
around
a
it in a
ninja
circle.
kick,
5
it's a
were
lot
holding
easier if you
candles while
don't have
one
to
was
do
reading
that.
off what looked like an old piece of parchment. What he was saying was beyond my knowledge, not English from what I could hear. Every time the main suit would finish a sentence or two, the others would repeat the last word. As I crouched there amazed, I saw what looked like a flash of yellow and blue stirring from on top of the altar. There was someone on it, a woman. She stirred again, and I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. It looked like one of those college program kids that get to be friends with the characters. Completely dressed as Snow White. She was gagged and bound. What the hell was I seeing? Her eyes were huge and filled with fright. Tears were streaming down her face, making her overly done makeup run. As much as she struggled, she could barely move. The man with the parchment stopped reading. The others all produced some crudely made daggers and made their way to her. 2 of them went to each of her arms, 2 to her legs, and 1 stood at the top of her head. The leader, for lack of a better word, made a gesture with his hands and said 1 more uncomprehendable words, and the others moved in. The 2 by her arms sliced her arms from mid-bicep down to the wrists. 2 others did the same from mid-thigh to the tops of her feet. The 5th one actually carved what looked like a half moon into her forehead. I stifled a scream and closed my eyes. I could hear muffled screams and the smell in my nostrils and taste it in the back of my throat. I opened my eyes briefly to see the leader produce a knife, walk over to the altar, and lift poor Snow White's chin up toward him. That's when I turned and ran. I got back to the break room sprinting through the door. I must have looked half crazed because one of my buddies said, "What the hell happened to you, and where's your lunch bag?" I didn't even answer him. I just stood there. He looked me over one more time and decided to call the foreman over the radio to come talk with me. The foreman came in. took one look at me and asked if I was feeling okay. I shook my head. He told me to go home for the remainder of my shift. I called out sick the next 3 days. In the comfort of my home, I attempted to rationalize what had happened. It had to be a gag, right? Was it my boys with an elaborate welcome to the crew trick? I mean, God, Walt Disney World is crammed full of college program kids, late teens and early 20-year-olds away from home in college, getting paid crap just so they can put Disney on their resumes, just fornicating and causing havoc every chance they get, playing tricks so they can put it on their blogs or Twitter or whatever else stupid things they use to get attention. Had to be. On my first night back to work, I literally had to force myself not to turn my car around at the security gate when the guard opened it for me to enter. When I got to the break room, one of the lifers I worked with was sitting there seemingly waiting for me. He told me to clock in, leave my stuff with him, and go meet the foreman over by the main entrance. I looked at him quizzically since it was pretty far from where the mine was, and it was heavily frowned upon for us non-cast members to be found wandering far from where we were assigned. I stated as such and he just said, "Go, you'll be with your boss, so it would be his ass and not yours if someone says something." I made my way over to the main entrance and found him under the train station, sitting on one of the benches. He told me to sit. We sat there for about 5 minutes without speaking. He lit up a cigarette, and I did as well. During night shift, you could get away with this if you were careful about it. He asked me what had happened to me the other night. I just shrugged, looked at the newly hosed down ground, and exhaled. He put his hand on my shoulder and said that I was a great co-worker. The other guys all liked me a lot. He didn't want to lose me, and that he was surprised I came back after the way I had looked. I told him that it wasn't far from the truth. He asked me if I was just sick, or if something had happened. He also asked me if maybe a cast member manager had given me a hard time, and if so, he'd handle it. I shook my head and said that he wouldn't believe me and would probably fire me for being a nut if I told him. He then said something that made me feel it was okay to tell my story. He said, "I've worked here since it was just flat land and dirt roads. Nothing you say can shock me." I looked up at him, dead in the eyes. When I saw that he was telling the truth, I began to explain everything from the beginning. I ended the story when the other guy told me to come see him. My foreman sat there, flicked his cigarette butt, and ground it onto the floor. A huge Disney no-no. He had sat there nodding through the entire story, not interrupting once. Never once a smirk, a smile, a look of disbelief. A custodial truck happened to drive by, and when the headlights flashed on us, I had seen that all the blood had seemed to drain from my foreman's face. He breathed in and exhaled once from the mouth. He had the beginnings of tears in his eyes. He finally spoke. "What I'm about to tell you, kiddo, not many here have been here long enough to know, and those who do know almost never speak about. It's sort of a taboo subject, and the few that do talk about it are too old to care or have had one too many scotches." He smiled half-heartedly at this, and I thought maybe he might stop, but he continued. "I have lived in this area for almost 80 years. I have barely been out of this state, less times than I can count on one hand. Orlando has only looked this way for a short time. If you could have seen this land in the time I grew up here, you would be amazed. Marshland and orange groves. Nothing else. Until Uncle Walt decided this was the spot for his next incredible theme park, there was practically nothing. Humans have been inhabiting this land for a very long time. The Ace, the Apalache, the Calusa, the Timucua, the Tocobaga, all native Indians that lived in or around the land you are sitting on right now. The Paleo Indians were here before them, ancient lands. Well, I'm no historian, but I guess the Indians at some point figured out this land was a little spoiled. Spoiled as in not just bad, but spoiled as in how a little child throws a tantrum if it doesn't get its way. At some point, when these cultures were not having good weather or crops, what have you, they figured out that a blood sacrifice could do the trick. Every time they built a large structure in this area, they drew blood. But for whatever reason, the sacrifice had to do with the structure being built. For example, if the Indians were building a religious structure, a shaman had to be sacrificed. If a settler was building a barn or orange grove, a farmhand had to be the one. You get me? And it had to be done by the elders of the town. couldn't be done by just anyone, but by the elders and most